Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Late Night Talk with me, your host Ahmed Ali. And tonight, before we begin the episode, we would like to send our deepest condolences to Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. May Allah hasten his reappearance as we get closer to the 10th day of Muharram, the day of tragedy and grief. Now, during the last 1400 years, an unparalleled amount of literature has been written on Imam al-Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, in almost every language across the world. Many with the respect regarding the sacrifices made by Imam al-Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, in the 61st year after Hijrah. Now, almost all Muslims are united in the idea that the sacrifices of Imam al-Hussein, peace and blessings be upon him, had saved Islam from going into extinction. Now, what part of Islam was Imam al-Hussein seeking to save or protect? What did Imam al-Hussein see that made him determined to initiate this revolution? And have we understood the full picture of the Imam's revolution? This, inshallah, will be the axis of tonight's discussion with our very special guest, Sheikh Abbas Panju, who has joined us once again. Sheikh, assalamu alaikum. Allah yakhallikum, inshallah. Wa ujurakum, inshallah. Now the dear viewers can hear the noises coming from outside, Sheikhna, and I just want you to tell them what's going on this night.
Alhamdulillah wa shukr. These sounds that we hear from the beating of the drums and the trumpets from the mawakib, alhamdulillah, these are all announcements. The way I see them, these are all declarations. Declarations, number one, in the victory of the message of Imam al-Hussein. And number two, these are declarations of love from the masses for Imam al-Hussein. Today being the 8th night of Shahr Muharram al-Haram, this is a night which is traditionally attributed to Qasim, Sayyid Qasim, the son of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba, alayhi salam. And this is a day which is attributed to him to honor him. And you find that a lot of the mawakib come out with reenactments yes, in regards to reenact the sorrowful manner in which Shah Qasim or Imam al-Qasim came out into the battlefield, how he sought permission from Imam al-Hussein, the poetry that he recited, the young boy that he was at the very young age in his youth, the beginning of his youth. They come forward and they acknowledge and they revere him by allocating a particular day to him. And you see these mawakibs then come in with these reenactments of Qasim alayhi salam, pledging their support, their love, coming into the haram of Imam al-Hussein. And then this parade then goes Bain al-Haramain into the haram of Abu al-Fadil yes, alayhi salam. And they distribute henna and they distribute sweets in the name of Qasim alayhi salam.
Just like in a wedding.
Just like you would say in a wedding, but the environment is the environment of grief.
It is.
As you know, we have within our historical text, and what is very widely understood and practiced is that Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam had recited the marriage vows between Qasim and his daughter, in the sense that excuse me, in the sense that this is a divine union that Imam al-Hussein performed between Qasim and one of his daughters. And the discussion about this is very long, is very in-depth in discussing why Imam al-Hussein did this, what are the objections towards this. But at a very simplistic level, a person can take that from this event only, you can understand the importance of early marriage.
Yes.
Because Imam al-Hussein was in a position of tabligh, and there is no aspect of the deen that he didn't leave except for tabligh. Number two, that this was a ceremony that was marked with grief and tears.
It is, yes.
Not in terms of a wedding ceremony where, there was all-out celebrations or anything like that. An act, as you know, marriage, إِذَا تَزَوَّجَ الْعَبْدِ فَقَدْ اسْتَكْمَلَ نِصْفَ دِينِهِ.
Yes.
For ihya, to bring to life and to re-establish the sunnah, Imam al-Hussein came up with this.
Beautiful. I mean, and beautiful explanation of what's going on in Karbala right now. The view I can see right now is amazing. Sheikh, if you just take a look outside over there,
sure.
You can see everyone's wearing white and they have a tomb and candles, as you said, sweets and stuff. to reenact the tragedy of Karbala, but in a more different way. And you only see that on the 8th night of Muharram. Inshallah, we can talk about this more as we go into the show. But tonight, Sheikhna, there's a lot of questioning when it comes to the revolution of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. When it comes to looking and understanding the most important aspects within the revolution of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Everyone has given their own idea when it came to the revolution and what led to the revolution. Now, in what way was Imam al-Hussein's revolution exceptional?
Maulana, Imam al-Hussein's revolution was exceptional from every dimension, and any particular angle that you analyze this revolution, you find that it was exceptional. Number one, for example, the character of the people involved within the wars. You find that on one hand you have the peak of loyalty, as we discussed yesterday.
Yes.
You have the peak of spirituality. On the other hand, you have the peak of materialism. You have the peak of goodness and virtue. On the other hand, you have the peak of evil and deceit and everything ugly possible.
Yes.
But you find exceptional in the sense that even the manner in which the war was carried out. I mean, you look at the place in which the war took place, exceptional, the land of Karbala. This is the land of Karbala where we have within the hadith that thousands of prophets before Imam al-Hussein and thousands of successors of prophets were all shuhada, were all martyrs in the land of Karbala. Even before the revolution and the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein.
Wow.
And we have this from a narration from Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. On the other hand, you find Karbala is that land that was honored and blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 20,000 years before the creation of the Kaaba, as per the tradition of Imam al-Sajjad. So you find that even, alayhi salam, even the land of Karbala, the land on which the battle took place, is a land which is exception. The people who participated in the battle were exceptional people. Sayyid Shabab Ahlul Jannah on one hand. Companions, Imam al-Hussein says, I do not know of companions better than you, more loyal than you. When Imam al-Hussein says, I don't know of companions more loyal than you, yani, in this realm of existence, there does not exist anybody more loyal than these 72 men who were there. Exceptional. On the other hand, you look at the numbers within the war, 72 versus minimum of 30,000. This is exceptional. Look at the results of the war. Or look at the actual war in itself. For a war of 72 men versus 30,000, you would think that such a war should be over and done with within minutes. Ahsantum. Yet you find 72 men fought from the time of Fajr all the way at least to up to what narration said during the time of Asr, which was the istishhad of Sayyid al-Shuhada, when he was brutally martyred. We say at least a minimum of 12 hours, whatever, of war for this war to be stretched from the time of Fajr until the time of Asr. This in itself is an exception. And then on the other hand, you have a look at the outcome of the war. In human history, victory has always been for the army that kills or the army that kills its opponent
or defeats,
or defeats that their opponent. This has been the sunnah of human history, that victories for those who overcame their opponents on the battlefield. You find Imam Hussein is an exception. His death did not lead to his loss. Rather, his death is a symbol of his victory. You don't find any other revolution where the head of the revolution and his companions are martyred in such a way. The entire world, you could say, is against him. Yet Imam al-Hussein turns out to be victorious. Exceptional in the manner. And similarly, if this is the case, you find that even the values for which Imam al-Hussein stood up for, the principles behind the revolution were principles that were exceptional as well.
Very, very exceptional. And an idea. But is it safe to say that Prophet Muhammad also led a revolution, if you will? When he first began Islam, it was a revolution to the people. This was something new. And revolution is something that has brought something new to a certain community.
100%.
Now, which one is more greater, if you will? The revolution of Imam Hussein or the revolution of Prophet Muhammad?
We say that both complement each other in the sense that Imam al-Hussein was out there to protect the revolution brought by Rasulullah. Had Imam al-Hussein not stood up in Karbala on the day of Ashura, then the revolution of Sayyidul Anbiya would not exist today. Yani, if you're looking at which one is more intense, without doubt, Rasulullah is the best of all individuals, the most honored of all individuals. But the protector of the revolution, the protector of the message of Rasulullah was Sayyid al-Shuhada. Had it not been for this event of 61 AH, that which was initially established by Rasulullah would have been obliterated from the face of the earth.
Now, another idea that comes into mind when we hear about a revolution, we always see revolutions coming up, whether it's for a moral cause, whether it's for a national cause, different ideas we
Absolutely.
have. But the revolution of Hussein alayhi salam, a lot of people say was purely for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala need that much blood for a revolution to be successful?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't need for this much blood to be spilled. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not need anything. He's independent of this creation and not dependent on them. Rather, it is us who is dependent on Him.
Even the Imams?
I'm sorry, in what sense?
Yeah, even the Imams are dependent on Him?
Even, of course, the Imams are dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you find that every victory that they achieve, they thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. Every miracle that they are able to perform, the ilmul ghaib which they seek it from a source, and that source is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Imams, without doubt, are totally dependent. In fact, they are the embodiment of how a person should be dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When it comes to understanding this mission of Sayyid al-Shuhada, the reasons and the principles behind the revolution, there is no better avenue to understand the revolution than from the words of Imam al-Hussein himself. What did Imam al-Hussein himself say in regards to this revolution?
What did he say?
When he was coming out of Medina, he writes in his final testimony and his will, you could say, to his brother Muhammad ibn Hanafiya. And he declares to him the purpose of him coming out of Medina in this revolution against Bani Umayyah, where he says to his brother, وَإِنِّي لَمْ أَخْرُجْ أَشِرًا وَلَا بَتِرًا وَلَا مُفْسِدًا وَلَا ظَالِمًا وَإِنَّمَا خَرَجْتُ لِطَلَبِ الْإِصْلَاحِ فِي أُمَّةِ جَدِّ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُرِيدُ أَنْ أَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَأَنْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُصِيرُ بِسِيرَةِ جَدِّ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ وَأَبِي عَلِيَّ بْنَ أَبِي طَالِبٍ.
Wow.
Imam al-Hussein says, I have not come out over here in opposition, out of oppression or in order to cause fasad, to cause dispute and disequilibrium within the society, no, or to create mischief. Rather, I have come out for the purpose of reformation. Reformation. Yani, he wants to reform the religion of Rasulullah. Why would it need reformation? Meaning that it has undergone such an extent of corruption that the master of Jannah, the grandson of Rasulullah, has seen that the level of corruption that is prevalent within the Islamic nation, or the amount of corruption being carried out within the name of Islam, has become so deep, has become so great, has become so embedded within the fiber of society. In order for this corruption to be removed, to be eradicated, a massive revolution like Imam al-Hussein's needs to happen. And then the Imam goes on to elaborate the reformation. He says, أُرِيدُ أَنْ أَأْمُرْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَأَنْهَى عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. Amra bil ma'ruf, inviting people towards the good, forbidding that is evil. وَأُرِيدُ أَنْ أُسِيرُ وَأُسِيرُ فِي سِيرَةِ جَدِّ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ وَأَبِي عَلِيَّ بْنَ أَبِي طَالِبٍ. I want to revive the seerah. I want to revive the legacy of my grandfather Rasulullah and my father, Amir al-Mu'minin, Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now, each and every one of these points in itself is an entire discussion.
It is,
but
yeah.
by far, the most important, yani the central feature of the revolution of Imam al-Hussein, as per the words of Imam al-Hussein, is reviving the legacy of his grandfather and his father, Amir al-Mu'minin. Why is Rasulullah insistent on the seerah of his father, Amir al-Mu'minin? He could have said, I just want to revive Islam as per the teachings of Rasulullah. La, you find over here that Imam al-Hussein insists by adding in this mission statement, I am reviving the legacy of my father, Amir al-Mu'minin. In the sense that the seerah of Rasulullah has been corrupted to such an extent that if Islam is going to gain salvation, it can only be gained salvation through the teachings and the adherence towards the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam. It is Amir al-Mu'minin who is the accurate representation of that seerah and that legacy of Rasulullah. Every other dictator, every other tyrannical regime that came into power came to rule on the basis that they are upholding the seerah of Rasulullah. They manipulated the legacy of Rasulullah. They manipulated the religion of Rasulullah. They manipulated everything that they had for deen. They attributed lies to Rasulullah. Yet, so in this scenario, within this environment, within this situation, you find that Imam al-Hussein elaborates that the path to Rasulullah is the legacy of my father, Amir al-Mu'minin, and this is what I'm coming to revive. Therefore, Habibi Ahmad, if you contemplate over these words, Imam al-Hussein is saying, I am standing up in revolution to revive the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib. The wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam was established Yawmul Ghadir. Meaning what? That Imam al-Hussein is standing up to revive Eidul Ghadir. He's standing up to revive the day of Bay'ah to Amir al-Mu'minin, that day of wilayah towards Amir al-Mu'minin. The entire Karbala happened in order to protect the Khilafah and the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin, to invite people towards the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin. And you find that Imam al-Hussein mentions and invites people towards this wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin a number of times during his revolution, even on the day of Ashura. When they stand up for battle and they're within their formats, as you know, Imam al-Hussein delivered 2 sermons on the day of Ashura. From one of these sermons, he reminds the people and invites the people towards the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam.
Now, even when you mention that, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam, stood up from everyone in his revolution, and the tyrants that came into power tried to manipulate the religion of Prophet Muhammad and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Yazid said it publicly, when he says La'abat Hashim Mulk, that famous poet to Yazid. Now, he said it publicly that he's not a Muslim anymore. Now, how is he manipulating the religion of Islam when he says that and he kills the Prophet's son, and he says that? Like, he actually says that I've killed the Prophet's grandson and there's no revelations that were revealed.
Absolutely. This shows you Yazid, la'natullah alayhi, was the peak of dictatorialism, in the sense that he took this leadership over the Muslim Ummah to another level, tyrannical to the extent that he was able to wield authority over the people in the name of Islam, because his father appointed him as what? As the Khalifa over the people. And the Khalifa is who? The representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he was so bold enough, you could say, to insult Islam, proclaim his disbelief in Islam, and yet manage to have authority over the people. The people were like sheep at that time. They accepted the leadership of a person who came into power on the basis of Khilafah, and yet the same person negates the entire message of Islam. Yani, if I give you a very, very simple example, in terms of, and the people have a big fault in accepting the leadership of Yazid. It was the fault of the people to a great extent that they decided to abandon Imam al-Hussein.
Yes.
They decided to abandon Muslim bin Aqil at that time. Why? Because for them, it didn't matter whether this person reflects the teachings of Islam or not, so long as their dunya is guaranteed.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
But just to drive you this point, imagine you're reciting Salatul Jama'ah behind an Imam Imam al-Jama'ah, normal person.
I want to listen to that story.
You're reciting Salatul Jama'ah behind a normal Imam. He leads prayers in a mosque 5 times a day. And then after leading prayer, he comes and he gives you a sermon and he creates doubt in your mind in regards to the existence of God.
Wow.
Now, who is more dafter, or who is more dumber, or how dumb can the masses be? That they pray behind a person 5 times a day, Jama'ah, and they sit and they listen to his speech when he is negating or questioning the existence of God. Now, who do you blame? You blame the people or you blame the Imam? Yes, the Imam, this one definitely, he has a fault within them. But to a great extent, the fault is the fault of the people.
Yeah.
They are the ones who accept to pray salat behind him. And yet they are the same ones who listen to his sermons when it comes to questioning the existence of God.
And
so the people, in that sense, were like sheep. Like we said yesterday, in a state of ghafla. And they needed to be a powerful revolution that would shake the dhamir, the souls of the people, not only of that time, but until the day of judgment, and motivate them to uphold the values and embrace the divine values of this religion, and in particular, the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin alayhi salam.
Alayhi salam. And once, just to add, I don't know if you can tell it's probably authentic or not, once I read one of the traditions that said, to the extent that people in ghafla, people were, how do I translate it? I don't know how to translate ghafla into English. You can probably tell us how to, but they were in a state of, disbelief to the extent where following Yazid even meant for him to lead prayer while drunk.
While being intoxicated, absolutely.
And there's one story, I don't know if it's true or not, but he made a woman lead prayer once.
Right.
And he prayed Salatul Jum'ah on Wednesday.
Muawiyah did that. He
Muawiyah
recited
did that,
Salatul Jum'ah on a Wednesday. Yani,
And people
maskhara. They made a mockery out of the religion. And the funny thing is that the people followed in this.
Yeah.
Yes, some of them were behind material gains. As long as their dunya was guaranteed for them, they were happy and couldn't be bothered for whatever happens in the name of the religion. And there were a lot who were there who were living out of fear.
Yeah.
There were those who lived out of fear, and there were those who knew that what is happening is wrong, but they just didn't have the courage to stand up and support the truth. In that sense, there was an incident as well once. Walid in Kufa led the salat while he was drunk. He was in a state of intoxication. There are so many other incidences. They recited Salatul Fajr once 4 rak'ahs instead of 2. And he turns around after the 4th rak'ah, and in a very sarcastic manner, he asked the congregation of the prayers, are you satisfied with the salah, or do you want me to increase more? Do you feel religious enough, or do you want me to add more rak'ahs towards the salat?
Wow.
They made an entire they came into power using the name of religion. And when they got into power, they made a mockery of anything and everything to do religion. And not only that, they waged war against the representation of religion in itself, and that is the Ma'soom Imam. And all this chaos and all this destruction starts with the disobedience of the command of Allah and the Rasul on Yawmul Qadir in regards to the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'minin.
Now, why is Ghadir the central of everything? I mean, when you hear that a certain Imam died, it was because what happened in Ghadir. People did not understand or did not listen to the Prophet on Ghadir. What to Karbala? Well, people did not obey the Prophet on Ghadir.
Sure.
Now, why is Ghadir the central for everything?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the importance of Eid al-Ghadir, or this day of Ghadir, in terms of announcing the Khilafah of Amir al-Mu'minin and the Imamate of Amir al-Mu'minin Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, where he says in Surah Al-Ma'idah, these 2 verses within Surah Al-Ma'idah, I advise myself and our respected viewers to study the commentary of these verses very carefully. from both sources of the Amma as well as the Khassa. Look what the Shia Mufassirin say, look what the Sunni Mufassirin say in regards to these two verses, Surah Al-Ma'idah verse number 3 and Surah Al-Ma'idah verse number 67. In one of these verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhar rasul, balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbik, wa illam taf'al, fama ballagta risalatah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this verse was revealed before this declaration, Man kuntum mawla, fahada aliyun mawla. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Rasulullah, if you didn't make this declaration, Man kuntum mawla, fahada aliyun mawla, it is as if you have not conveyed any message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your entire function, your entire efforts and jihad over 23 years in regards to propagating the message of Islam, everything doesn't mean anything if you do not make this declaration. Man kuntu mawla fa'ad aliyu mawla. Yani we understand that imamah, wilaya as a concept, imamat as a concept is that central concept through which every other aspect of the deen is safeguarded. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Ghadir, after the declaration, this verse is revealed, Al-yawma akmaltu lakum deenakum wa atmamtu alaykum ni'mati wa raditu lakum al-islam deena. Today I have completed your religion. Meaning what? Imamat is that aspect of deen where the ma'soom imam, infallible imam selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, basically, if you could summarize, his functions are twofold. Number one, he protects the religion from any sort of misinterpretation. You look at the problem that we face today,
but it did happen,
21st century. I'm sorry?
Where's the protection? It already happened.
In what?
The misinterpretation within Islam, it already happened though.
The misinterpretation only happened because people decided to interpret the religion without Amir al-Mu'mineen. They looked for avenues of interpretation other than the interpretation of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Rasulullah said to the people, Aliyun ma'al Qur'an wal Qur'anu ma'a Ali. When it came to understanding the Qur'an, interpreting the Qur'an, implementing the Qur'an, what was required is that the people go through Amir al-Mu'mineen. Because it is Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam who has been given the divine knowledge in regards to the parameters of the application of deen. Every problem that we see today, or every problem that we see in history today, is because the Quran has not been interpreted.
Yes.
Alaykum bil haqq. Come and look at ISIS. You look at these Daesh and these ISIS people, for every crime that they've committed, from stoning to beheading to waging war to establishing a khilafah, do they use the Quran as a justification or no?
Yeah.
You ask any one of them, you look at their public interviews, you look at the statements that they give, they are very quick for you to pull out a verse of the Quran. Wajahidul kuffar, for example, kill the kuffar wherever you find them. This is the verse that they recite before conducting a beheading.
Yeah.
They use the Quran, but the interpretation of the Quran is not that. The Quran doesn't justify behaviors like this. Why? They came and they took the interpretation of the Quran from others, other than Amir al-Mu'mineen, misinterpreted it, manipulated it in order to carry out what they want. So therefore, Rasulullah, when you ask me what is the centrality of this message in regards to the deen, what we say is that the misinterpreted religion is protected from any sort of misapplication and misinterpretation by going through the right channel, and that channel is the imam. To add on to this, misapplication we said, or the misimplementation.
Can we talk about that after a short break, if you want, inshallah, to see what Muhammad Ali has brought to us in terms of reports. Sorry to cut you off, Sheikhna. Respected viewers, do stay tuned for. We'll be back after the short break to see what our dear friend Muhammad Ali has prepared for us from the streets of Karbala. We'll be back very soon, so do stay tuned.
Assalamu alaikum, peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. Welcome to the holy land of Karbala. Welcome to the land of sacrifice, the land of Imam Hussein and his brother Abu al-Fadl Abbas. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon them. The peace of paradise, where everything about this piece of paradise is very special and has a very special story behind it. Often you have heard of this phrase, Chai Abu Ali, which is basically tea that is distributed on the honor of Abu Ali, Imam Hussein, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. This tea has a very special story, and that's why you find it everywhere around the streets in Karbala, and not only Karbala, but also those who came walking from Najaf to Karbala. They often find such thing, and they often seen, the tea all around the streets get distributed. Basically, there's water and there's tea. The only thing that is distributed even more than tea is water, and then comes the tea. For those who came, they might have the view or an idea about why so much tea. But for those who haven't come, and I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant them the privilege to be in the holy land of Karbala, to perform the ziyarah in the holy shrines of Imam Hussein and his brother Abu Fadl Abbas. As well as that, I will be elaborating more on the idea of that tea and why is it distributed that much and at all times. So stay tuned. We'll go to one of the services units and find out the story behind that tea.
On the sands you'd lie, your hands cut off.
My brother here is the Husseini servant, Ali Tamimi. He is a member of Al-Mukhtar Al-Thaqafi Services Unit. Now, I'm going to ask him about the symbolism and the story behind distributing so much tea, and the symbolism behind Chai Abu Ali, the tea of Abu Ali, the tea that is distributed for the service and love of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. عزيزي، شنو الرمزية والسر وراء توزيع شاي بهالكميات الكبيرة هاي وبهالصورة هاي؟
حسن الضيافة بأن يكون من شيمة العرب، أول ما يأتي الضيف يقدمون له شاي، هذا رمز العرب عندهم تقديم الشاي لحسن الضيافة. وإحنا الآن لخدمة زوار الإمام الحسين وبخدمة الإمام الحسين وكل أهل كربلاء في خدمة الإمام الحسين، ومحتضنة زوار الإمام الحسين من كل المحافظات ومن كل الدول.
My brother here just said that for the service of the pilgrims of Imam Hussein and for the service of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, they distribute this tea. As a regular custom in the Arab society, the guest is offered tea as soon as he arrives to the guest house or the guest room or whatsoever. When you have a guest, the first thing to provide to him is the tea. Means that everybody are welcomed, and as my brother says, it is the service of Abu Ali, it is the service of Imam Hussein, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. It is to distribute not only tea but every possible thing to be distributed.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We do thank very much our dear brother and friend Muhammad Ali for going out every night in Karbala. It's pretty packed outside, just to provide us with the footage of what goes on every night in Karbala. Sheikh, it's an amazing job.
Alhamdulillah, without
to,
doubt.
to go out and do the things that people do.
It's a
in
very
Karbala.
commendable effort to be there, to be recording amongst the people with all the crowds and all this heat. Alhamdulillah wa
Alhamdulillah
shukr.
Rabbil Alameen. And Sheikhna, as you probably experienced, it's, as you said, the heat, and it's pretty crowded,
Sure.
which also increased the humidity in the air. And Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, hopefully we can get the ajr that we seek from Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam. Now, before the break, we were talking about a few points. We mentioned Ghadir. We mentioned the misinterpretation of the Quran.
Sure.
That Prophet Muhammad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the Imams died to protect. The third testimony, if you will, Ashhadu anna Aliyan waliyullah, that being that Ali ibn Talib is the successor to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to Prophet Muhammad. And we were talking about the verses that people take out of context, or misinterpret or interpret in their own way.
Right.
Now, Sheikhna, why the hatred? The reason if someone hated someone has to be either materialistic or something to gain. Now, what did the enemies of Ahl Bayt gain when they hated Ali ibn Talib so much?
There are a number of reasons for their hate towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. And you find that this hate was also evident on the day of Ashura. Towards Imam al-Hussein because of their hatred towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. On the day of Ashura, they vented it out. Their hatred for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, they vented out on Imam al-Hussein. The proof for this is that we read within the Maqatil. On the day of Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein went into battle, he was so ferocious within his battle that the men, cowards as they were reluctant to come and attack him. And even when Imam al-Hussein had sustained numerous injuries, do you know, one of our ulama, Alama Tushtari rahmatullah alayhi, says just the sword wounds on Imam al-Hussein, yani the wounds inflicted by swords, just that in itself were close to 100 wounds. 100 wounds just incurred by the swords. And this is now different from the spears and the arrows and whatnot. Despite all this, when he was heavily injured and on the ground, covered in blood, even then the army was a little bit reluctant to come and attack Imam al-Hussein because they knew how ferocious he could be. So because they were scared, at that time, Umar ibn Sa'ad, la'anatullah alayhi, says to the people, to his people, now how do you motivate people to overcome their fear, especially in a situation like this in war, to come and attack Imam al-Hussein? He said to them, هذا ابن قتال العرب فاحملوا عليه. He is the son of the killer of the Arabs. So attack him min kulli jawanib, attack him from every direction. Yani, Umar ibn Sa'ad is using the hatred of the people within the army to trigger them to fight against Imam al-Hussein. He was using their hatred for Amir al-Mu'mineen as a motivating force for the army to push forward. How much hate could they have inside for this? And then what was the reason for this hate? The reason for this hate, like the way Imam Sahib al-Amri wa Zaman mentions within Dua al-Nudba, which is recommended to recite on every Friday, if not every day. This is from one of the a'mal that are to be done when a person goes into the Sardab of Imam al-Hujjah in Samarra, Ajalallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. In fact, Sayyid Ibn Tawus looks at Dua al-Nudba as a ziyarah. It's actually a ziyarah, a salutation through which you address the awaited Imam. In any case, in Dua al-Nudba, the 12th Imam mentions that the reason for their hatred towards you was because of the blood, towards Amir al-Mu'mineen, was because of the blood that was spilled and the heroics of Amir al-Mu'mineen during the time of Badr, Hunayn and Khaybar, Khandaq. You know, it was these battles of Badr and Khandaq and Hunayn in which Amir al-Mu'mineen, by the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, defended Islam. And a lot of the casualties that were incurred during the days of Jahiliyyah, when their children or their family members came into the fold of Islam, they bore that grudge against Amir al-Mu'mineen.
Now, so
This
they
is sorry
seek
one.
vengeance.
This is one vengeance, and the other two was just open jealousy, which is why when we speak about jealousy being an ugly trait and how a person needs to clean his heart from hasad, yani we see that hasad is the root of all fasad.
Wow.
Why did Iblis refuse to do sajda in front of Adam? Hasad. Why did the people bear opposition towards Rasulullah? Hasad. The people from the Ahlul Kitab, from the followers of Nabi Musa, the creed of Nabi Musa in particular, why did they reject the message of Rasulullah? Hasad. Why should the final messenger of Islam be from the progeny of Ismail and not from the progeny of Ishaq?
Wow.
Why should he be from them and not from us? Hasad, they rejected the message. And the same thing, hasad against Amir al-Mu'mineen. And a lot of the companions said it. We wish that we had some of the merits that were attributed to Amir al-Mu'mineen. We wish we had some of them for us. They could not see the fact that a man at such a young age had so much courage, had so much bravery.
Wow.
They could not stand the fact that it was Ali ibn Abi Talib who was selected by Allah. And this jealousy towards them. Jealousy in so many things, in his marriage towards Sayyidah Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. Historians mention that how many of the so-called great Sahaba asked for the hand, proposed to Sayyidatina Nisa al-Alameen. They sought her hand from Rasulullah and Rasulullah refused.
Wow.
To the extent that Rasulullah says, now I forbid anyone to come to me and ask me for the daughter of my for the hand of my daughter in marriage. I'm waiting from the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there were great companions. There were those who were then assumed to be khulafa by other schools of thought. Rasulullah rejected their proposals. He said, I'm waiting from the command of Allah.
Wow.
In the end, who gets married to Sayyidatina Nisa
Abi Talib.
Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. For these fada'il, these traits of superiority that Allah bestowed upon Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, the people looked at Amir al-Mu'mineen with that hasad, with that jealousy on one hand and hatred on the other hand. Combined these two traits, and this is the result that we see in history.
You have calamities, you have atrocities occurring through history. And, you know, just to add to one of your points, you mentioned, you can tell us how authentic this narration is. When Imam Hussein on the day of Ashura asked the people, why are you fighting me? And they said, بُغْضًا لِأَبِيكَ وَبِأَبِيكَ.
Absolutely.
Hatred towards your father. Is this
100%? This is recorded by a number of the ulama from amongst the Arbab al-Maqatil. And it is in line with what Umar ibn Sa'ad said when he was rallying the people towards Imam al-Hussein to go and kill him. And history shows the acts. I mean, look at Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, La'natullah alayh, ibn Marjana, who sent the army from Kufa against Imam al-Hussein.
Yes.
Why did he kill the likes of Mitham al-Tammar? Was it not because of their love for Amir al-Mu'mineen?
Yes.
Hajjaj down the line, why did he hunt down Kumail? It was because of his love for Amir al-Mu'mineen. You find Hujr ibn Uday. Why was he killed by Muawiyah? Because of his love for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. During the rule of Muawiyah, 30,000 people were killed, executed because of their love for Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. And this is the tragedy, in that the hatred towards Amir al-Mu'mineen resulted in violence. And we pay the price for this till today.
Yeah, I mean, we do, especially what Iraq has been through.
Not only Iraq, the entire world.
The entire world.
The entire world. The image of Islam, the savage image of Islam that is given out towards the West. Yes, to a great extent, media is biased and without doubt. But to a great extent, it's the fact that the version of Islam not taught by Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, not taught by Ahlul Bayt, a version of Islam other than the version of Ahlul Bayt, which the people are exposed to, and this savagery then comes in from there. Otherwise, you look within the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, where do you have violence? Where do you have such type of killings within the teachings of Islam? Intolerance, women's rights. Yani you find a number of Islamic countries, women are not given access to education. They are forced to remain illiterate. Why? Because they say it goes against hijab of the woman. Subhanallah, what happens? The wrong image number one of hijab is given. How many people are against hijab because they look at hijab as a fact of oppression?
Yeah.
Why? The interpretation of hijab is wrong. The understanding of hijab is wrong. The implementation of hijab is wrong. Over here you have the highest level of illiteracy rates within Islamic countries for Muslim women. Yet you find you have traditions that are narrated by Amir al-Mu'mineen, narrations that are narrated by Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq on authority of Rasulullah. Talabul ilm faridatun ala kulli muslimin ومسلمة. He should have said طلب العلم فريضة على كل المسلمين. It would have encompassed men and women together. No, Rasulullah pointed them
explicitly
out, male and female. But nobody was ready to listen to Baqir and Sadiq alayhi salam. And then today we see the natija is this.
Yeah.
Yani, the chaos in which the Islamic nation is today. You look at this, truly it's absurd. You have people who say La ilaha illallah in a suicide blast, kill other people where the victims are also saying La ilaha illallah. Yani the killer is saying La ilaha illallah, the maktul is also saying La ilaha illallah.
It reminds me of the story where when a person was asked, why was Hijr ibn Adi killed? And they said because Sayyidina Muawiyah killed Sayyidina Hijr ibn Adi because he loved Sayyidina Abi Talib. So everyone is their master. And subhanallah, and as you just mentioned, this is 100% true of what's going on. The people are, the victims of blasts aren't people who are of disbelief. They're Muslims themselves. And
majority of them, even to go further than that, majority of them are Shia.
Yeah.
And the oppressed sect, we are a sect
if
that
not
has
90%
been
of them.
oppressed.
Yeah.
To an extent that no other sect in human history has been oppressed in the way that we have been.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
Because of our affiliation to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib
Subhanallah.
alayhi salam.
Now, earlier in the first part, you mentioned that Imam Hussein did give 2 speeches. Now, couldn't he had made it clear when Umar bin Sa'ad said this is the person that killed the Arabs and so on? Couldn't he said that you guys pledged allegiance to my father, and reminded them of Ghadir on that day? Couldn't he have done that?
He did.
He did.
You find that throughout his life, Imam al-Hussein dedicated whichever opportunity that he had in regards to inviting people and reminding people of the wilayah and the khilafah of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. You look at in the speech that he gives at the very beginning on the day of Ashura, just after Fajr. Part of that speech is that he says to the people, فَانظُرُوا هَلْ يَسْلُحْ لَكُمْ قَتْلِي وَإِنْتِحَاكِ حُرْمَتِي. He says, just think about this. Is it permissible for you to spread my blood, to spill my blood, and to violate my sanctity? Yani, attack me with my women around here. أَلَسْتُ إِبْنُ بِنْتِ نَبِيِّكُمْ. Am I not the son of your prophet's daughter?
Wow.
Just this lineage in
he
itself.
Reminds them.
Just this lineage in itself should show you how divine I am. In any case, and he goes, وَإِبْنُ وَسِيِّهِ وَإِبْنُ عَمِّهِ وَأَوَّلُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ الْمُصَدِّقِ لِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ بِمَا جَاءَ مِنْ عِنْدِ رَبِّهِ.
Wow.
This is a Ma'soom Imam talking. Hujjatullah fil ard. Every word is a word that is carefully selected because the Imams are the peak of balagha, peak of eloquence. What does he say? Do you not know that I am the son of the wasi of Rasulullah, the successor of Rasulullah? But it fell on deaf ears. And even before Karbala, we have a narration in Bisharatul Mustafa, the book Bisharatul Mustafa li Shi'atil Murtada, tradition by Imam al-Hussein, where he stood up to the masses and he said to them, قال رسول الله إن علي بن أبي طالب خليفتي. That Ali ibn Abi Talib is my Khalifa over you. Wa Khalifatullah. Khalifatullah is the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after me. He goes on to say, Wa hubbuhu hubbi. His love, to love him is to love me. Wa silmuhu silmi wa harbuhu harbi. To go to be at peace with him is to be at peace with me. To be in war against him is to be in war against me. This is Imam al-Hussein telling people that to go in war with my father Ali ibn Abi Talib is like is similar to going into war against Rasulullah. Who came out against Amir al-Mu'mineen in Jamal? These are the same
well known.
Imam al-Hussein is saying. This going out against my father in the battle of Jamal, those people who went out against Amir al-Mu'mineen in the battle of Jamal, it's like they went out against Rasulullah. Who went out against Amir al-Mu'mineen in Siffin and Naharwan? It is Imam al-Hussein is telling the Ummah what has happened in this recent history. Understand where is the haqq and understand where is the batil. Because this islah, this reformation in the Ummah cannot happen until and unless we embark upon the path of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Look at this one poem that Amir al-Mu'mineen recites. That Imam al-Hussein recites in honor of his father. I found this in the book Kashf al-Ghamma.
Oh, wow.
And you notice how every opportunity Sayyid al-Shuhada had, he praised his father Amir al-Mu'mineen and showed the people of the greatness of Amir al-Mu'mineen. In one of these poems he says, Ana al-Hussein ibn Ali. He says, Ana al-Hussein ibn Ali ibn Abi Talib. Al-Badru bi-Ardh al-Arab. He says, I am Hussein, the son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the shining moon of the Arabs. Alam taraw wa ta'lamu anna abi qatilu Amr wa mubiru marhab. Do you not know that my father was the one who killed Amr ibn Abdul Wad on the day of Khandaq?
Yes.
The Quran says that when Amr ibn Abdul Wad came to challenge the Muslims after they were under siege, they were overcome with fear. They were terrified to such an extent that they doubted Allah Azza wa Jal.
Wow.
So look at the context in which Imam al-Hussein is speaking. Do you not know that my father was the killer of Amr, and it was my father who destroyed Marhab? Who gave the Muslims victory over Khandaq? Was it not a number of the Sahabi who later on went on to become Khulafa, went in to conquer Khaybar, and all of them were defeated until Amir al-Mu'mineen came. It was Amir al-Mu'mineen who granted the Muslims victory in the battle of Khandaq. So he goes on to say, do you not know that my father is the killer of Amr and the one who conquered Marhab on the day of Khaybar? وَلَمْ يَزَلْ قَبْلَ كُشُوفِ الْكَرْبِ مُجَلِّيًا ذَلِكَ عَنْ وَجْهِ النَّبِي. Do you not know that even before these two incidences, it was my father who would come to rescue Rasulullah, who would be the source of protection for Rasulullah? It is my father who dispelled every sort of calamity from Rasulullah. And then it goes on to say, this is now the point of them. أَلَيْسَ مِنْ أَعْجَبِ أَجَبِ الْعُجُبِ أَن يَطْلُبُ الْأَبْعَدْ مِيرَاثَ النَّبِي Wallah kad awsa bihifdil akram. He says, after all this, isn't it strange, yani ajib, that those who were furthest away from Rasulullah claimed proximity to Rasulullah, yani took the place ordained by Rasulullah. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained us and commanded us within the Quran to take care of those closest to Rasulullah. An indication towards ayatul mawaddah. Kulla as'alukum alayhi ajran illa al-mawaddata fil qurba. Ulama of the Amma and the Khassa say that the qurba over here on authority of Ibn Abbas is Ahlul Bayt.
Subhanallah.
So
and
you find
rejected
that,
it.
So you find that Imam al-Hussein concentrated his entire effort and every opportunity that he got, he invited people towards the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, because this is the path of salvation.
It is. It is. I mean, a lot of people may use the excuse that it's because Ali ibn Talib is Imam Hussein's father. That's why he praised him so much. Because now, you know, in the Arab world especially, not so much in the Western world, but in the Arab world, when someone wants to talk about himself, he first talks about who his father is, who are his tribes, his cousins, his uncles. So wouldn't that be one of the excuses that people may use against Imam Hussein Islam, is that he was praising his father? Why was he praising his father so much? He could have praised Islam more than he praised his father. He could have praised some of the companions, you know what I mean, who were alongside Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Number one, to praise his father means to praise Islam. There is no separation between his father and Islam. And this was the point Imam al-Hussein was driving home. There is no Islam without my father. This Islam of Rasulullah, pure Islam of Rasulullah, it cannot exist. This is a tawahum. I don't know, how do you say this? Is a false imagination, a false misconception, a false understanding that you can have Islam without Amir al-Mu'mineen. If you have Islam without Amir al-Mu'mineen, you have an Islam of injustice and Dawa'ish and Bani Umayyah and Bani Abbas and so on and so forth. It's not the Islam of Rasulullah and not the Islam which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed through the Malaika and through the Quran. So therefore, this excessive praise of Amir al-Mu'mineen is Imam al-Hussein showing the people that Islam is inseparable from Amir al-Mu'mineen.
Beautiful.
Again, we cannot say that Imam al-Hussein out of nepotism praised his father. This would go, or this would mean, or this would necessitate that we belie the Quran. How? In regards to Imam al-Hussein, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Ayatul Tathir, إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Ulama of the Amma and the Khassa, they are all of the opinion that amongst this Ahlul Bayt, Imam al-Hussein was within this. Yani, as per virtue of this verse, say the Shuhada is infallible. If he's infallible, yani he doesn't commit any sin, he doesn't have nepotism, he's free of any sort of purity or defect. So therefore, if I do say that, yeah, Imam al-Hussein said this because he was praising his father and it's he was muta'assib towards his father, if I want to hold that belief, then it comes at the expense of negating the Quran.
Perfectly said, Sheikh.
Barakallah
And we'll
feekum.
continue this, but after this short break, if you will, inshallah. So respective viewers, do stay tuned, Sheikhna, do stay tuned for the next report we have for you from the holy city of Karbala and from the streets of Karbala. It's pretty packed tonight, so let's see what Muhammad Ali has prepared for us tonight. Viewers, the report you just presented with were the brothers from Turkey. that come out every night, Sheikhna, walk on the streets of Karbala, raising their swords. And in one of the episodes you weren't here with us, I said it in a way where Imam Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Ashura, he says, "Ala min nasrin yansurni." And every night of Muharram, these people come out raising their sticks or raising their swords. I looked at it in a way where they're replying to the call of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, saying that, you know what, 1400 years ago you had no one to support you on the day of Ashura, yet here we are. And the millions of people are in Karbala right now. They're saying, here we are, answering that call that was never answered back there.
It's another way of saying فَيَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ
مَعَكُمْ
مَعَكُمْ
فَأَفُوزَ
فَأَفُوزَ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. And this is a sentiment of love and affiliation and
Yes.
that loyalty that we were
Yes.
talking about yesterday.
Yes.
That, they come here and they cry. They say, yes, we were not there to be with you, but here we are, and this is our
Alhamdulillah.
proof.
Alhamdulillah. Now, Sheikhna, tonight is not only Thursday night, which is Karbala is known for,
Alhamdulillah.
packed. Over 1 million reach Karbala on a regular Thursday. The first Thursday in Muharram was the banner exchange, and you were here and you saw how crowded it was.
Sure.
Right now, it's not as crowded as the banner exchange, but I don't know if the viewers can see it. A wider view, if we can, of how Karbala looks like right now. Sheikhna, it's packed.
Absolutely.
Thursday night, and it's also, as you mentioned earlier, and as you've been mentioning, every night of Muharram is dedicated to a certain personality, and tonight marks Al-Qasim alayhi salam. Now, Al-Qasim is known to be around 14 years old, 15 years old.
Absolutely.
Is that true?
The narrations mention, when you read into the Maqtal, it states in the description of Qasim, Shab lam yablughul hilm.
Wow, so
Yani-
he's not in purity yet.
He has just like barely reached in his early teens.
Oh,
He was barely at that stage of an early teen, an early teenager.
so how old is that? 13?
13, perhaps you could say, 12, 13, 14. But he was within that age range. And this expression is an expression to show how young and innocent Qasim was when he went into the battlefield. And, his story is exceptional. And every shaheed, every martyr from the martyrs of Imam al-Hussein, their stories are exceptional. And you find that Qasim in itself, it's a heart-rending incident. Imam al-Hussein asks him at one point, how do you see death in the way of truth? And he says to him, sweeter than honey.
Allah.
And
13-year-old.
this shows you the level of ma'rifah and the level of maturity that Qasim had. Number 3, the ma'rifah, the level of understanding in regards to the revolution of Imam al-Hussein. He fully fathomed and fully comprehended the intensity of this revolution and the impact this revolution is going to have on human history in terms of preservation of the message of Allah. And at the age of 12 or 13, he was at a stage where he understood, that if death is what it takes in order for the message of Rasulullah and Amirul Mu'mineen to be preserved, then that death for me is sweeter than honey.
Wow.
Yani a level of ma'rifah. He was an alim. We don't look at him as just a child. La, alim from the ulama of Ahlul Bayt. These are people who have grown up in the household of Ahlul Bayt. Sometimes we see within our own circles a person becomes, extremely learned or a mujtahid or a faqih at the age of 20, 25 because of amazing teachers. Then what about somebody like Qasim, who's grown up under the shelter of Sayyid al-Shuhada and Sayyid Zainab and Abu al-Fadil and Ali al-Akbar? And in addition to this, his ilm, being an alim, his courage.
Yeah.
He had courage that no other seasoned battalion or warrior within the Arabian Peninsula. You could not compare their courage in comparison with the courage of Qasim. And I say this, it's not an emotional statement, yani a fact. You notice this incident, that when Qasim goes into the battlefield and he goes into war, number one, within the narrations that we have, or the incidences that are recorded,
Yes.
Qasim at his young age killed 60 of the enemies.
Wow.
60. Sent them to Nar Jahannam wa bi'sal masir.
Wow.
Number one. Number two, he's in a war, hungry and thirsty for 3 days, surrounded by enemies, outnumbered, number one, just numbers. The weapons that they were using, axes and bows and arrows and swords, a person just looking at the weapons that they would use would be overcome by fear. The fact that he was outnumbered, he would be overcome with fear. Yet, you find that while Qasim is fighting, at one point, he finds that the lace of his left slipper is untied. What does he do? Surrounded by enemies, he bends down to tie his lace as if to show, you people don't matter anything to me.
Shaykhna, but you're in war. You protect yourself at all times.
Courage to show that you are, this was actually a statement.
Which resulted in his death.
Not necessarily. When he came down to tie his lace, this, you see, this is an act of an alim. As if to show that you people and this dunya which you are running behind, this dunya for what you want to kill me, to me is not even worth the lace of my slipper. This was the biggest insult that the enemy could take. What's wrong with this boy? 60 of our men have been killed by him, and now he disrespects us in battle, stops a battle, and now he ties his lace. They could not stand his courage and his confidence. And but you know, this is an act, yani when we say Qasim alim from the ulama of Ahlul Bayt, yani we have within our traditions of how it is makruh to walk with a lace that is opened. Yani so for Qasim alayhi salam, look at his alertness and his ma'rifah. Yani when he's in a form of jihad, protecting the religion of Allah, he doesn't want to be protecting the religion even while he's in a state of doing something makruh, as something as what you and I would consider as simple, tying a lace.
We would just throw the slipper on and continue.
In addition to the fact that if we said that the lace or an unopened lace, untied lace would result to his fall. Outside of that, but Qasim from the ulama, and when they saw this courage in him, the fact that they were not able to attack him and send 60 of them to Nar Jahannam, this baffled them. Which is why the narration mentioned that Qasim wasn't killed on a one-on-one duel. Abadan la. He was undefeated in 60. The narration mentions that Amr ibn Sa'ad al-Azadi, one from the enemies, when he looked at Qasim, he said that I will ensure that his uncle is filled with grief by killing him. I will take the responsibility to kill him.
Wow.
Hamid ibn Muslim says there are others who are going to kill him. A beautiful, innocent boy like this, why do you want to stain your hands with blood? But Amr ibn Sa'ad al-Azadi was insistent. The narrations mention that when Qasim engaged in battle, or as he was coming up to tie his lace, Amr ibn Sa'ad, the important part is here, Amr ibn Sa'ad struck Qasim ibn Hasan with a sword from the back. He struck him with a sword at the back of his head. This is where we say, oh man, what a big coward you were.
13-year-old.
You attacked a 13-year-old man, a 13-year-old boy, teenager. You didn't even have the courage to face him
One-on-one.
one-on-one, attack him from the front, you attacked him from the back. How lowly and how beastly were these men. And sometimes ajib jiddan. People tell us don't recite Ziyarat Ashura because to send la'na is not a good thing or is not humanly. How do you not send la'na to animalistic individuals such as these? Cowardly individuals such as these. The narration says that he struck Qasim with such force with his sword at the back of his head. Qasim fell on the plains of Karbala face first. And Qasim cried out in a manner that breaks the heart. Every one of the shuhada of Karbala, when they cried out to Imam al-Hussein in their final moments, they said, Alayka minni salam ya Aba Abdullah. Or Alayka minni salam ya Abata, for Ali al-Akbar. They always said, our final salams to you, Master. Muslim, Habib, everything. Whenever they fell down, our last greetings, our last salam to you, except Qasim.
What did he do?
When Qasim fell down on the plains of Karbala face first, he cried out, Adrikni ya Amma. He said, Ya Am, oh my uncle, help me, Adrikni. The intensity of the strike of the sword, a young lad like this. The narrations mention that Imam al-Hussein came out like a charging lion. He attacked the killer of Qasim, and within this confusion, there was a stampede. Some of the historians are of the opinion that Amr ibn Sa'd al-Azadi was trampled to death by his own army as they retreated, because Imam al-Hussein was charging like a raging lion. And some scholars mention that Qasim was also trampled upon, because this incident was not in isolation. It's not that Qasim was on a different part of the battlefield and the enemies are in a different part. No, they were in close proximity. So some of the scholars say that Qasim also got trampled in this process. But they say that when the dust settled down, what was seen is that Imam al-Hussein is seated by the head of Qasim. The Qasim is moving his legs up and down out of pain while his face is covered in blood. Imam al-Hussein puts his chest on the chest of Qasim and he cries out and he says, by Allah, it hurts me, your uncle, that you cried out to me and I could not help you. It hurts me that you cried out to me and I could not come to you in time. Or when I came to you, I was not able to help you. The historians say that Imam al-Hussein carried Qasim back to the tent. And Qasim's legs were dragging on the sands of Karbala. But the historians say he was a 13-year-old child. He was not that tall. He was not that tall, such that if Imam al-Hussein lifted him, his legs would still be dragging on the sands. It was the weight of the tragedy. Imam al-Hussein's back was bent to see the son of his brother Hasan al-Mujtaba in this state. And you know that Qasim was not the only son of Imam al-Hasan. Today when we see these mawakib come out, these mawakib are actually paying tribute and paying allegiance to Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba, Madloom. These to revive the dhikr of the sons of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba is to revive the dhikr of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba. There were two other brothers of Qasim that were martyred. One was by the name Abdullah al-Akbar and the second was Abdullah al-Asghar. Do you know Abdullah al-Asghar? He was 11 years old. The historians mention that on the day of Ashura, when Imam al-Hussein was by himself on the plains of Karbala, Abdullah was looking at what's happening. An 11-year-old child ran out. Sayyidah Zainab tries to stop him, but the child runs. And one of the kuffar is going to strike Imam al-Hussein. This 11-year-old child cried out, "Oh, evil man, how dare you strike my uncle?" This man by the name of Bashar or Bishr, out of anger, turned the sword away from Imam al-Hussein towards the child. The narration mentions as he came to struck the child with the sword, he said, innocent child, when anybody hits a child, what is the reaction of the child? They cover themselves with their hand. The child covered himself with the hand. The narration mentions this la'in struck the arm of Abdullah, brother of Qasim. The arm was half severed, yani half the arm was hanging from the elbow. Half the arm was hanging from the elbow. He threw himself onto the chest of Imam al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein hugged him. And then he said, Ya Allah, you judge between us and this nation. At this point, Hurmala shot an arrow at the neck of the child. The child died in the arms and in the laps of Imam al-Hussein. This is Qasim and his two brothers. The sacrifice of Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba in the lands of Karbala. This night of Qasim, to commemorate the upholding of Qasim and his brothers, it was through Qasim that Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba participated here in Karbala.
Sheikh, to narrate, I can't bear listening to this, but to narrate it, I mean, you have to have courage, and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, you're able to join us in this Muharram, and honestly, we just, in these nights, we remember that even if a small tear, if someone, helps you to shed a small tear for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, Jannah is guaranteed for him. So Sheikhna, I congratulate you for this. Jannah is guaranteed for you, inshallah. For you have made the hearts of so many shed for Abu Abdullah
These are very
Hussein
kind
alayhi
words
salam.
from you, Shaykhuna. But at the same time, we also have to make sure that we do not do those acts which then, as a result, the good deeds that we do are rendered void. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa
Inshallah,
ta'ala to protect all of us from such
Inshallah.
type of sins and to
Inshallah.
increase our love and our dedication for Ahlul Bayt and to uphold the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen and the message of Ghadir, for
Inshallah.
which Sayyid al-Shuhada gave his life on the plains of Karbala.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Anna, for joining us tonight. Looking forward for tomorrow's topic. Inshallah. Respected viewers, thank you very much for joining us tonight. As we have been mentioning, every night is dedicated to someone, and today was Al-Qasim, and tomorrow it's his cousin Ali Al-Akbar, and what a tragedy is tomorrow. So do stay tuned for tomorrow's episode with our very special guest, Sheikh Abbas Panju. So have a good night. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.